Welcome to Getting Unstuck with Wendy B. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Christine, for coming, being willing to share with us about anticipatory grief. My pronunciation.
Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. And I'm visiting Christine. She's my older sister.
True.
As well as a therapist. And we're having an awesome week off. I'm having a holiday with her. And I'm just going to, I am a speaker, an author. I have a podcast, Thriving at 60. I'm in 30 different countries. I have over 26,000 followers. So I really appreciate my sister. You know, we were talking and I said, would you be willing to go on my Facebook Live? And she said yes, and we were deciding what topic. She could talk on many topics, and maybe you'll hear her on a regular basis. So I'm a best-selling author. I've written 2 books, one Living Your Passion with James Malachuk and many other thought leaders in the world. And then my best-selling book, Getting Unstuck with Wendy Bergen, 30 Ways to Turn Your Limiting Barriers into Clarity, Freedom, and Power. And you can get that on Amazon in digital or paperback. And you can get it in digital in other places, but only in paperback on Amazon. You can get it in digital in Tolino, Kobo, Apple, Barnes & Noble, Overdrive, 24 Symbols. So thanks, and we're just going to jump right into what is anticipatory grief, Christine?
Yeah, anticipatory grief is a grief reaction to an impending loss. So it could be the impending loss of your own death. Maybe you've received a diagnosis that you're going to be dying in the next 6 months or year. Or it could be the impending loss of a loved one. Or it could be, you have a loved one that now has a serious illness that is going to continue to decrease their abilities, and they may die eventually from that illness. It might not be for 10 or 15 years, something like maybe Parkinson's or MS, those kinds, or some kind of blood illness. Or it could be, it could be other, that's usually what we think about it as an anticipatory grief, or it could actually be an impending, like, huge financial loss, or, maybe you lost your house, or it could be something like that.
Great, thank you. So what are you going to talk about, like, what are the main things that people should know about that?
Well,
the stages or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good question. So often people haven't even heard of what anticipatory grief is.
Yeah, I hadn't.
Yeah.
Until you spoke it.
Yeah. And how is that different than grief? So anticipatory grief, as I've just said, it happens before the death or before the actual loss of the person or the event, And so it's not spoken about. It's not really, therapists would recognize it. Maybe workers in palliative care would recognize that. So therefore it's not talked about. So it's not normalized. So often people make themselves wrong for the feelings and emotions that they're having. And so they feel that there isn't anyone to talk about it because no one has said to them, oh, you know what, I think you're suffering from anticipatory grief, and normalize that for them.
Yes. So what are some things that they would recognize? What would be normal for anticipatory grief?
Okay, so kind of what I just alluded to, part of was, it's not sociably acceptable. Even with grief, people are so uncomfortable with talking about their thoughts of feelings around grief. Never mind anticipatory grief. You could have people thinking, well, what? People are so uncomfortable with talking about grief, never mind anticipatory grief, right? Mm-hmm. So some people might say, like, what the heck are they going on about? The person hasn't even died yet, so, like, what, or that kind of thing. So there's a lot of fear of judgment, and so there's a lot of anxiety. So I'm just going to be making some noise here.
Sure.
So some of the symptoms of that would be, sadful and tearfulness, which also happened with grief, separate from anticipatory grief. So you might be watching TV and a commercial comes on and suddenly you're crying and you're like, whoa, what was that all about? Because it's triggered something in the anticipatory grief. You have another one is feelings of fear. Not only fears if you're the one that's going to be dying, but also fears for your loved one that is eventually losing abilities because of Parkinson's or MS or dementia, Alzheimer's. That's another one that can go on for a long time. So, or your own, right? Your own fears about, how am I going to deal with this death when it happens, or how am I going to deal with the loss of my partner when my partner can't take care of themselves anymore? Am I going to be able to take care of them? Will I be able to? Another one is you may have lots of feelings of irritability and anger with yourself, with the person that you're afraid you're going to be losing, and then also, it's very difficult dealing with your partner or your child or your loved one, whoever the loved one is, their anger, because they're going to be if they're losing abilities and cognition abilities and physical abilities, they're going to be angry at themselves and they have their own anger. And so now you're having to deal with not only your anger because they're going to be losing their life or losing their function, but now you're dealing with their anger at you just because they're angry because of their losses.
So, what I'm hearing you say, like I was thinking as you spoke of our mother who has dementia and sometimes gets really angry at you or us because of her loss of ability to remember or whatever. So that can be challenging to deal with. Yes.
Yes, and how do you continue to treat them with dignity and yourself with dignity when you're going through that? Yeah, it's really trying, right? And
yes.
I think that's, why it's so important to be working with someone who can help guide you through that and normalize the process for you, right? So there's
yes.
a lot to take on your own.
Yes.
And the normal tendency is to avoid that.
Yes.
By trying to numb out with something, whether it's sugar or TV or alcohol or, sleeping pills, so that we feel numb because we just feel overwhelmed. How are we ever going to deal with this, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the danger is when we avoid speaking about it with someone, avoid working on it, is that we tend to get isolated then.
Well, it's neat you're saying that because like my Facebook is about getting unstuck, so people can get stuck, right, in their grief.
Absolutely, yeah.
And because they're not dealing with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And another one is loneliness, and in anticipatory grief, the experience of the difference between anticipatory grief and the loneliness and grief and the loneliness is in anticipatory grief, the person experiences intense loneliness. It's an intense loneliness that they're not able to express.
Hi, Arlene.
Hi, Arlene. Good to see you. And they're not able, so they can't express it, so they can't accept themselves. They don't feel accepted by others. So then it leads to more isolation. And another one is the desire to talk. There's often an intense desire to talk. But who do I talk to? Because most people are uncomfortable talking about feelings anyway, never mind feelings of impending loss of a partner or a sister, a brother, a child, a dog, whatever it is, right? Or a job, or, so if you don't have a safe place to talk, then again, there's social withdrawal, emotional withdrawal, the tendency to drink or, numb out on something, putting on 50 or 60 pounds because you're numbing out on sweets or sugar of some sort, right? To protect yourself from the pain, right?
Yes.
It's not like it's bad to do that, but it's important to find out when you're using those things, where's it taking me from? Where's it taking me to? why am I doing that? What, am I avoiding something? Yeah, there's intense pain in the heart, and it's how do I deal with that on my own? Well, I say you don't. It's important to talk, and that's why there is a desire to talk, and we often want to block that out, right? Whether subconsciously or consciously.
So you need safe places to talk and share your
Absolutely.
feelings. Yeah.
And there's different ways to do that. I mean, I've never heard of an anticipatory grief group. There's certainly grief groups, but not anticipatory grief groups.
I'm just gonna, you keep talking, I need
Okay.
to add,
Another one is anxiety. If you're concerned about an impending loss of a loved one, then what happens is, you're living in a heightened state of anxiety. And that can cause physical symptoms, heart palpitations, shaking, again, more isolation, leading to health problems. I'm just going to put this there, okay. All right. And the seventh one is guilt, especially if your loved one is suffering. There's, if you're what they call it survivor's guilt, you're the one who feels such intense guilt because your loved one is suffering, and you may not be able to alleviate that in any way, even with a medical team's intervention. You long for that person to be free from their pain, and that, and at the same time, you feel guilty because you don't want them in pain, so you'd like them to be without pain, and that would envision maybe losing them sooner than later. But at the same time, you have this mixed feelings of, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose them too. So there's this, this guilt about having all these feelings and thoughts about them dying, but they're all normal. They're like every human being has those thoughts and feelings. Most of us are afraid to express them, and so we don't, so nobody knows that they're normal.
yes, my experience is when, I've been told I'm a good listener, and when people say stuff and I listen and then I go, oh, I've had those thoughts too. They look at me like, really? And
Yeah.
it's like you and I have both been trained to share our thoughts with safe people.
Right.
So, and then it lessens because we don't get we're alone anymore, right?
Exactly.
Other people get those feelings too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it keeps us from being isolated. Suddenly
Yes.
that feeling of isolation starts to disappear, and we have more of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, and more confidence.
Yes.
Because part of the grief process is that we go through, actually we start to lose confidence in ourselves.
Yes.
But when you're working with someone and they're validating you and normalizing your feelings and your thoughts, then you have more of yourself because you think, oh, there isn't anything wrong with
Yes.
me. This is normal that I think and feel this way.
Yeah, that's why I thought it would be great for you to talk on that.
Yeah.
So you want to share a little bit more?
Yeah, you have intense concern for the dying person. Your whole life suddenly may be fixated on that person, and that's really normal. You're wondering how they feel. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they in pain? It's like nothing else exists but your concerns for them, right? And being able to work with someone, they can remind you about your self-care. Because if you're not there taking care of yourself, you can't be there for your loved one either.
That's like on the airplane, if you got little ones, you better put that oxygen mask on you first so that you can take care of the little ones, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, people have thoughts about rehearsal of death. They might find themselves visualizing, the person dying, and then they feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't be thinking those thoughts. Or what will happen after they die, having fears around them dying, but also have fears of, okay, now what will happen with my children, or what will happen with, whoever. How will I deal with this after? I wonder how I'll deal with this after, right? So those kind of thoughts are really normal. And you may experience physical problems with sleeping. I've talked about the anxiety before. You may have memory problems because you're under so much stress. dealing with all of this. And, you know, just looking at the last one I have is, well, it's under fears again, fearing loss of being numbed out, feeling that you won't have compassion and concern for others because you're so consumed with your own process, really. And like I said, with the children, like how would they be cared for? And maybe I won't have the financial resources and those kinds of things.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And if someone wants to get a hold of you, you don't have a web page, so do you want to tell them your email?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, my email is Christine, Christine, at lake, Lake.ca. And I can't remember, am I supposed to give my phone number or no?
No, it's best not.
Yeah, and I don't have a web page because I'm semi-retired and I didn't want to be super
Inundated.
busy. Yeah, but you know, my history as a therapist, I'm actually an addiction specialist as well, and so well versed in working with those folks and their loved ones who care for them very much, and the grief around of a child or a spouse having, or a work partner having that disease. And all the other things, the traumas that come along with that, because addiction is always trauma-based. And yeah.
Maybe we could do a Facebook Live on that at some point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for playing here. And if you come on and listen to the, what do you call that, the review of this, then please make comments. You can get a hold of at Christine@lake.ca, or you can message me with some questions and I can ask Christine and we can get back to you and give you an answer then. In the meantime, thank you for listening. You can get a thank you, Christine.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
appreciate
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and we've never done this before, so this is
No.
awesome. I've got to learn how to do it through Zoom and streamline it so that I can just do it, right, and not have to do it in person. And don't forget that you can get a complimentary, you know, given this COVID time, people are really struggling, and I really believe that people need to share, they need to express, and so I'm giving 15-minute discovery sessions or complimentary sessions, and sometimes it might even be a half an hour. If you're dealing with something and you want to cause yourself a breakthrough, you know, message me, and this will be a gift from me complimentary. And don't forget my book, Getting Unstuck, 30 Ways to Turn Your Limiting Barriers into Clarity, Freedom, and Power. You can get that on Amazon, on digital or paperback. Thank you. And next week, I'll probably be doing my Facebook Live at 9 in the morning. I might even get Christy. I'll still be here. Might get her to share some more. But I'm going to be catching the ferry at 12 noon, so I'm going to be doing my Facebook Live at 9 o'clock next Sunday. So thanks again, and don't forget, put comments when you re-watch this. Let us know topics that you'd like to hear. Maybe I could get Christine to talk on some other topics that you'd like to hear. So thank you very much, and talk to you at 9 tomorrow morning, or next Sunday morning, not tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.